Great main event. We've got Anthony Lionheart Smith taking on Aleksandar Rakic. And there's so many different ways to break this down because you have Anthony Smith that, listen, the guy's 32 years old and he has, 48 professional fights? That's insane. And he's a guy that is kind of a late bloomer in a different weight class. This was a guy that came to 205 from 185 on a hellacious knockout loss to Thiago Santos. And all of a sudden, pops back in, picks up some really important wins over some all-time legends, and inserts himself into a title fight against John Jones, one that he lost by decision. He didn't get finished. Now,
Got beat pretty bad.
Didn't put on a good account of himself, comes out, fights Alexander Gustafsson, and it didn't go great at the start until it went really well for Smith. And then in his last fight, he takes on Glover Teixeira in a fight that a lot of people, I wouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people thought Anthony Smith would have won that fight. Yikes.
He started out great.
He did, and it wasn't a good fight. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are basing the Rakic pick off of Smith's last loss. You got to focus on the parts and pieces and everything that's involved. But for Aleksandar Rakic, I mean, yikes. This guy's looked so good in the UFC. Francimar Barros was a big win in his debut. Picks up another big one over Justin Ledet. And for Ledet, it just didn't really translate moving from heavyweight to light heavyweight. But again, really good boxing on his part, Ledet's part. From Devin Clark, I mean, this is a guy that is a great wrestler. He has good boxing. I mean, a former RFA champ. Rakic finished him. Finished Jimmy Manawa, a guy that's an even better boxer. And just from a pure boxing stance, a great boxer. Rakic looked amazing in that fight. And then in his last fight, yes, he lost to Volkan Oezdemir, but he put on a great account of himself. And there are a lot of people that thought that Aleksandar Rakic won that fight. So we get into this matchup. Anthony Smith, he can become a Swiss Army knife. But this is the thing about Anthony Smith since he's moved up to 205 pounds. Matt doesn't know what I'm about to say. Anthony Smith is like Tobey Maguire in the third Spider-Man movie when he finds his style. He starts wearing those glasses. He starts saying things that Anthony Smith never used to say. And you know when Tobey Maguire got the moves and he started really swagging around? Anthony Smith, the way that he strikes, he throws those weird punches right down the pipe where he spins into them. And they're odd, and it catches people off guard. And it's almost like Anthony Smith walks you down with these strikes, backs you up, and then finishes you. You remember that Shogun fight? The elbows, the punches down the pipe. There are so many things that you like from Anthony Smith. There's a lot of things that you cannot like. And he can become a little flat-footed. He can really start to bear his weight on his front foot. What have we seen from Rakic so far?
So Aleksandar Rakic is a really interesting case of if you're an insanely good athlete, it can actually translate to MMA fairly well. And not to say he doesn't have skills as a martial artist, it's just when you watch him fight, you can really tell how physically strong he must be. And the Justin Ledet fight's a really good example. Now, I understand Justin Ledet's not close to Anthony Smith's skill level, but what Aleksandar Rakic was able to do to him was very impressive because we talk a lot about people's level of competition coming into the UFC, and it doesn't always matter who you fought, though. It matters how you fought them. If you fought a guy who was 0-1, show it. Like, knock him out early. You really have to show that you're way above your level of competition. And no, Rakic wasn't able to finish Ledet in that fight, but it was the least competitive MMA fight I've seen in a very long time because Rakic on the feet could land at will, could take him down at will, just kind of ragdolled him throughout. And the fact that this main event is only a 3-round fight is really going to play into Aleksandar Rakic's hand because Anthony Smith is a guy who he's fought 5-round fights before. He's fought John Jones. He fought Gustafsson, scheduled for 5. Oezdemir scheduled for 5. Same thing with Shogun. So a guy with a lot of that experience who now really can't use any of that to his advantage because you can't really have the game plan of, I'm going to take Rakic into the deep waters because he's never been there before. Because you're going to get to the shallow end of the pool and then the fight's going to be done. But for Anthony Smith, he does one thing I really like and one thing I really hate, and you had kind of mentioned it. He's great at collapsing the space from range because he's got a really good front kick, he throws those really long combinations, and then if he has his opponent backing up, the second they meet the cage, he just collapses with them, and like you said, starts throwing those big elbows, especially against the cage when you don't really have any place to go. We see guys like Tony Ferguson, John Jones are really able to use those to full effect. Anthony Smith I wouldn't necessarily put in their category, but definitely a guy who uses elbows more than your average MMA fighter. For Rakic, though, it's going to be interesting. I think he's going to want to wrestle during this fight, even though Anthony Smith is a really credentialed grappler and is really good on the ground. But if Anthony Smith is able to start teeing off on Rakic a little bit on the feet, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Rakic shoots for a takedown just to get the top position and kind of reset himself in the fight, because Anthony Smith is a really good grappler, but we don't really see it off of his back all that often. And I'm not going to compare Aleksandar Rakic's grappling to Glover Teixeira's, because Glover is widely considered one of the better grapplers at 205, really regardless of weight class. What he was able to do to Anthony Smith, especially as that fight was drawing on, was really concerning because it wasn't just that Anthony Smith wasn't in there skill-wise. He just kind of got dominated as the fight went on, and he took so much damage in that Glover fight. Glover hit him with an uppercut, would hurt him, get him on the ground, and basically just ground and pound him for minutes on end without getting a stoppage, and the fight just kept on going that way. There was a solid, I'd say 9 minutes of Glover doing nothing but hitting Anthony Smith, and there wasn't much retaliation, and that fight wasn't very long ago. That was, I guess in the COVID era of the UFC.
But it was just over 3 months ago.
Exactly. And talking about Maki Pitolo coming back only 2 weeks after taking, he took damage, don't get me wrong. Anthony Smith took, and this might be an over-exaggeration, but he took what I would consider probably life-altering damage. Like, if you get hit that many times and you get TKO'd really brutally and you lose teeth, like, that's something that sticks with you long past 3 months. And you're fighting a guy, Aleksandar Rakic, who he could knock out a horse with a head kick. Like, he's a guy who has so many different skills, a lot of different facets in his game. I know he's coming off the loss to Volkan Oezdemir, but losing to a guy like that at this stage in your career, I know he's 28, which is a little old to be a prospect, but at light heavyweight, you can fight well into your late 30s, so he's got a lot more development to go. I see this fight as being a really good waking up party, or a really good welcome party for Aleksandar Rakic.
It's very interesting, too, because you mentioned it. Do we have too much put into the stock of recency bias with Anthony Smith, where he just lost a little bit over 3 months ago to Glover Teixeira in a fight where a lot of people wanted to see the corner throwing in the towel? Kind of like Max Roscoff, and Robert, but still, arguably, maybe they should have thrown the towel in, maybe they shouldn't, whatever. But Smith had a bad loss there. But the last time we saw him have a really bad loss, the John Jones fight, but he rebounded and beat Gustafsson. He had a bad loss against Thiago Santos. He rebounds and beats Rashad Evans. And a guy that's capable and good at a lot of things, but just not at that point in his career. It was kind of more of a layup and less of a slam dunk. But you look at this fight against Rakic, and I mean, holy smokes, this guy. You look at his low kicks. You look at his striking defense. You look at the fact that, is he a wrestler? No. But his takedowns on average, I mean, this guy is really throwing everything at you, and you don't think about it because you look at the way he's winning, it's with his striking, or he sets it up that way. His takedown accuracy isn't that great, but who cares? His takedown defense, 88%. So you're not going to see, you're probably not going to see Anthony Smith shooting for takedowns because he's the type of guy that beats you up on the feet and then takes it to the ground. The best example is Volkan Oezdemir, and everybody likes to slag us. Well, these two guys here, hey, Fight Night Picks covered UFC Moncton in person.
Really a landmark.
Oh, boy. And listen, when things open back up again, maybe you're going to see Fight Night Picks in a location near you covering the fights. But still, that was a highlight for us, and I really like to mention it. But still, Anthony Smith fought an interesting fight there because Volkan Oezdemir, what did he have success at? Pushing Smith up against the cage and really landing those hooks when Smith held his hands up high. And Smith's the type of guy that holds his hand normally during the fight, holds his hands up high, a Muay Thai stance. But again, he's really, really heavy on that front foot. All things that Rakic can try to exploit.
And that was something that we kind of see going forward. It's sort of a double-edged sword with Anthony Smith because he's one of those guys who he has great leg kicks himself. He's just terrible at checking them. And we saw that again, the Oezdemir fight. I hate to keep on bringing that up. But again, Oezdemir destroyed his front leg, and then he kind of did the same thing to Oezdemir. And then it was like, okay, well, neither one of us have our front legs anymore. I forgot to say the thing I don't like about Anthony Smith. So I like the fact that when he is going for it, crash that space, land those really good elbows. He gives up space really easily. He's kind of got that Tyron Woodley effect where if you do start to march him down a little bit, he's more than happy to just keep on walking backwards. Now, eventually, that is going to put your back to the cage. And with Anthony Smith, it is sort of weird because he can be at his most dangerous in that. Again, Oezdemir, he would get him up against the cage, he'd land that front kick and then explode forward. He'd be like, okay, you've got me back here, now it's my turn to start going forward with my offense. I don't know if you can get away with that with Rakic like you could with Oezdemir, because if you just start going forward on Oezdemir, he's going to try to figure out how to slip your punches and land his own counter shots, whereas with Rakic, that's not going to be his game plan. If you move forward on him, he's just going to duck down, take your hips, and then go for the takedown. So Rakic is going to give you a lot of things to think about during the fight. That, combined with the fact that Anthony Smith took a lot of damage not that long ago, and just that I think Rakic, he's kind of the next breed of the 205 division. I know losing to Volkan Oezdemir, it is what it is. You lost a split decision. I think that could be a growing experience more than anything for you. I think that if Rakic can get over on Anthony Smith, which I predict he will, I mean, who knows what's next? Maybe Yuri Prochazka. Like, there's so many good fights at 205, and there's a lot of people at 205 who are starting to kind of move their way up the division. It's a really fun time for the light heavyweight division.
If Anthony Smith wins, Everybody wants to see the rematch with Thiago Santos. Make it happen. Make it happen at 205. If Rakic wins, exactly. Yuri Prochazka, Aleksandar Rakic. Book it for...
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Book it. Honestly, if the world opens up, and again, you're really knocking on wood here, wouldn't it be cool if they fought in Japan? I'd like to see Rakic and Prochazka in Japan. And again, they're both European, but still.
Call, Craig.
That'd be awesome. It won't happen, but still... I think Rakic is going to be able to get the win. There's all sorts of different ways you can really break this one down. It's such an interesting card, but this is such a great fight. All the more interesting because, again, it's a 3-rounder. So how's Smith's camp going to approach this? Because Factory X came under some heat after the way that last one ended for him. For Rakic, what are we going to see? Are we going to see new things to his game? Because he just lost that fight against Oezdemir, first loss in the UFC. What do you get? I really do like Rakic in this one. The odds have Rakic minus 290 favorite. I don't like those odds. Smith a plus 235. If you look over on Tapology, 848 votes, 68% going Rakic, 75% going knockout. A little bit of an inside baseball thing. If you're going to get really mad about Maria Agapova losing to Shanna Dobson, why would you do anything with minus 1,600 odds? That's such a stupid thing to do. It ruined my parlay. How much value do you get out of minus 1,600 odds?
That 30 cents.
So think about that. Rakic at a minus 290. Is it worth? No, it's not worth it. Smith at a plus 235. It might be worth it, just like you saw Frankie Edgar when he fought against Pedro Munoz. Now, we can argue about the decision till the cows come home, but still, think about it in those respects. If you're the DraftKings guy, I get it. You got to pick something. So I'm going Rakic. Matt's going Rakic. This should be a great fight. You have great fights abound on this card. The co-main event, Lawler taking on Magny. There's so much to get excited about. But both of us in agreement with Aleksandar Rakic. Make sure you check out the rest of our predictions for the card, including a good look at the co-main. There's a lot of fight of the night possibilities here. Let's keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. And as we always say, let's get into it.